and I didn't think about it this way until recently, but like I never stop obsessing about my clients. And what I mean by that is I literally never stop trying to solve their problems and trying to figure out a better way to solve them.
So you have a passion for fitness and the desire to start your own business. But launching a massively successful fitness business is extremely complex. The systems, operations, hiring, firing, coaching, sales, and marketing are critical to success. Where do you even start? This show will give you the answers. Here is Bedros Keuilian and Bryce Henson, your hosts of the Fitness Franchise Podcast, a show dedicated to helping fitness entrepreneurs launch and grow successful gyms.
Welcome back to the Fitness Franchise Podcast, and we have another spectacular episode today, as today's guest is a good friend of mine with an impressive rap sheet, so here we go. He is an author, a sought-off speaker, and the national director for Fit Body Forever, which is a program specifically targeted for mature adults over the age of 55 within the Fit Body Bootcamp franchise. Now, he's also the owner of Daphne Fit Body Bootcamp and Daphne Fit Body Forever in Daphne, Alabama. He has been in the fitness and nutrition industry for 17 plus years, and alongside his team has served over 6,000 clients in his local community. Now, he is regularly featured in the media through Fox 10 News Mobile and Mobile Press Register. In addition to this, in 2016, he was awarded the Fitness Business Summit Personal Trainer of the Year. And in 2018, he was also awarded the Fit Body Forever Owner of the Year. He is a proud graduate of the University of Alabama. Roll Tide! My good friend, Steven Hadley, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, man. Excited.
Super pumped, man. Well, we got a lot to cover with. Before we do and kind of talk about all the success that you've achieved, give us some backstory. So how did you get to where you are today?
Well, I mean, all this really started back in 2009. So it's going back over 10 years, really. I graduated from Alabama, like you said, and I was studying exercise science. So I was actually a personal trainer at the university. That's really how I got my start in fitness. So training mostly like other students and some faculty, things like that. But that's really where I got my start. And at the university, one of the other trainers was doing a boot camp, right? And of course, that's the first time I ever heard of it or saw it. He was doing it outside, but he's actually doing pretty good with it. So my thinking was, hey, this guy's doing pretty good with this boot camp thing. I'm over here training people one-on-one. I think I need to move back to my hometown and start one of these. And because I knew that there was nothing like that going on. So that's what I did. Thought, how hard could it be? And it was a lot harder than I thought. But that's where it all really started. It was just like training clients one-on-one, loving fitness, loving everything as far as, the ins and outs of it, and helping clients get results, and really just saw an opportunity or a gap, if you will, in our market locally at the time to start. And so just started my own thing and went from there.
Shoot, man. Well done. We're going to talk about what that looked like. Before we do, going to University of Alabama, you got your degree in exercise physiology and nutrition. So talk to us about that. Like, how much did that impact you or really put you in advantage to be a successful gym owner and do all the things that you've done within the industry?
Yeah, I mean, the honest truth is I'm not really sure that it has helped a ton. Other than just maybe from a credibility standpoint, I mean, I think maybe clients, it can help you in that way. But, doing it now for over 10 years, being an entrepreneur, just in business in general, it's like the degree thing is it's not necessary, and meaning that it's a nice to have, but I totally believe that, especially in our industry, you need a certain level of competency for sure. And credibility. And I definitely think that's important to know what you're doing and why you're doing it. But at the end of the day, it's going to come down more about, how you can, connect with people. And then we're in the business of changing lives, which is in essence, changing behaviors. Right. And so that's going to end up being a little bit more important. But so I don't know that it really gave me a huge advantage, but I guess maybe nowadays it's like, hey, at University of Alabama, right? So there's credibility there. It's just the standard of excellence.
There you go, man. Well, for our
all
audience,
the Auburn people that are listening to this are throwing up right now.
yeah, that is the truth. Now, for our audience, I'm a proud Michigan State grad. Now, certainly don't have a huge rivalry, but at some point, lost to the Alabama Roll Tide, I don't know, a few years ago in the Final Four of football. So that was obviously devastating. But man, hats off. Obviously, our running joke over the years is just your excellent football program is just leaps and bounds.
It's unreal, man.
It's unbelievable. Well, good for you. Well, kind of shifting gears, you went to school, you kind of met a friend that, was running these boot camps. You thought, it was an opportunity to come back to Daphne, which is your hometown, and do that. You launched FitBody. How did you find FitBody Boot Camp? And then specifically kind of walk us through that first, 6-12 months of becoming a business owner, the trials, the tribulations, like the successes you had. Kind of what was it like to kind of get your career off the ground?
Yeah, it's that's the thing, right? Like I said, I thought, hey, how hard could this be? Starting this boot camp. And I think it's weird because that naive mindset and also my, positivity as far as like I can do this, like having that more of a visionary, big dreamer, big idea personality probably helped me more than I realize now, even though it was really frustrating in the beginning because I just thought, why can't I do it, right? So with basically the one connection that I had, I rented out a cheerleading facility. Like they were doing their stuff in the evenings, tried to, do my stuff in the morning. And that was kind of the model at the time. And so started that process and, worked really hard. And it was funny because even though I'm from this area, I'm not from Daphne. So I actually grew up about 25-30 minutes from this area. So I really didn't know anyone at the time, in Daphne, as far as real connections, I mean, I might've knew a person in passing, but I didn't really know any business owners or anyone in the community. So really and truly, it was the opportunity was in Daphne, but I didn't really know anyone there. And so I'm starting a new business, no money, no connections, no know-how really other than the training part. And so it was really hard. It was a struggle. I mean, I remember, starting out and, when you're not having success with something right away, it really starts to gnaw at you man, is this really what I'm supposed to be doing? So it was really tough. And I would say in the first 18 months, I think I only had 16 clients. It was that hard. Because I didn't know what I was doing, right? I didn't know how to get myself, how to really promote myself and promote my business. And so I literally was just driving around. I was living at home with my parents, driving around though, in my truck with no AC at the time in the Alabama summer heat. Okay. Like I said, school of hard knocks, man. I was driving around meeting other business owners and other people just trying to get my name out there. And I remember at some point when it really just didn't seem like it was going to work out, I remember thinking, okay, now I've actually got to pay some bills. So I started working at a vitamin shop, a GNC type store. I started delivering pizzas on the weekends. I was helping a friend out. I was working 4 different jobs. And then it's okay, this fitness thing isn't working out. I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to get a career job, right? I'm going to, go to, be a physician assistant or something like that. So I decided I was going to go back to grad school. And to do that, I had to take this GRE test. So I studied for this thing for 3 months, spent all this time in the library studying for this test and taking prerequisite classes at the local community college to go back to school because fitness wasn't working out and didn't score high enough on the GRE. So then I was really in a spot okay, can't go back to school, or at least that isn't working out. Fitness isn't working out. Guess I'm going to have to get a real job, just, I don't know, driving a UPS truck or something. You know what I mean? It's going to have to just be a normal, one of those kind of more blue collar type jobs. And I remember before I really started going that route, Google, as far as the amount of information that we have today, it was really in its infancy then. Meaning you could still find info, just nowhere near the amount that you could now, because we really didn't have Facebook and there was no Instagram and all that back then. So,
and what year was this roughly, Steven?
This was 2010. So 2010, okay. Right. Yeah. 2010. And I remember looking up fitness, and who I found, right? I mean, the guy that was absolutely dominating, fitness business coaching and consulting at the time, Bedros and, just ate up everything he put out there in his blog at the time. His blog. So there you go. Or you listen to this, you're like, what's a blog? Well, the blogs were basically the number one way to get info back then, more so than social media and all that now, and YouTube. So started reading everything and really just started getting some results. Like it wasn't anything big and crazy, but I was actually getting some results from what he was, putting out there, some of the strategies and tactics and stuff. And I mean, I remember signing up for Fit Pro newsletter. I couldn't even afford like the yearly fee, which was like $300. So I was paying like $50 a month for the service. But I did like the 21-day program and the 14-day program. So I started getting some results, and ended up doing a coaching program with Bedros. And that was really what led me to Fit Body Bootcamp, because he had recently just started it. And so he basically offered to let me use the money that I paid for the coaching program as a buy-in for the franchise. And it was like a license at the time. It wasn't a franchise at the time. Yeah. And so that's really how I got started. And that was really a big, I guess, stepping stone or like an aha type moment, because that was when I finally was like, okay, I can do this, because I was then on coaching calls, listening to like some other owners have way more success than I was having. And I was just sitting there going, okay, if they can do it, I can do it. Because I'm listening to them and I'm like, I'm smarter than them, or just as smart as they are. So that's what really gave me the belief that, that I could do it. And that's how I got introduced to Fit Body Bootcamp.
Yeah, well, good on you. That's interesting, because you're one of the most successful owners in the Fit Body Bootcamp brand. You literally have become now the national director of the Fit Body Forever program, which we'll touch on to in a minute here. But that's really interesting and good insight for our audience, knowing that, hey, a guy like you with so much success can start with humble beginnings and kind of from bootstraps work your way up. Now, kind of looking ahead, throughout your Fit Body journey, it's been literally over a decade now. What has been the biggest highlights, learning lessons, the biggest kind of accolades, aside from some of the rap sheet that I put out there? In addition to that, want to go through the challenges and the hurdles aside from that, first startup phase. So can you color in the audience a little bit about your journey as a gym owner?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it started out really, really rough and really, really, it was a struggle at the beginning. And I think that's probably how a good amount of people start out. So my first, little thing would be like, hey, if you're starting out and you're struggling, it's not just like pig-headed discipline of like, perseverance. I mean, that's part of it, but more than anything, it's just like you got to believe in yourself. But for me, that was actually seeing proof that it could be done, right? And that helped me kind of start to believe. And then once I started having some success, taking action, that success leads to momentum. And, like you said, it went from starting Fit Body Bootcamp to, all the way up to, moving into 2-3 different locations. And then now, over the last, we're going on 10 years, we've been able to generate, right at 5 million in revenue just out of one location. So it's been a lot of hurdles, a lot of lessons. But I think the main thing along the way, I would say, that's helped me the most, if someone asked me and said, hey, what do you think's been the real key to your success? Mm-hmm. I think for me, it's just been to like never, and I didn't think about it this way until recently, but like I never stop obsessing about my clients. And what I mean by that is I literally never stop trying to solve their problems and trying to figure out a better way to solve them. And so that's always that constant, how can I solve their problem? What is their problem? What's a problem I didn't know about? How do I solve it better? That it's like a never ending quest, and that never ending quest then provide solutions that is value that you obviously can exchange for money and more clients. And so it's just like, there's all this stuff, but at the end of the day, it's really all goes back to, I've always tried to stay curious and try to, like, I literally interview my clients. I will get them on a Zoom call and just drill them with questions, and get out a notepad and write down questions. I was with some Fit Body Forever clients the other day, and break my phone out and just hit record, and I'm just like asking them questions. I mean, they laugh at me sometimes, like, why are are you like a reporter? And I'm like, basically, because that's what I'm like. Why? Why do you think that? Why do you feel that way? What would you say is this? Like, what would you say is your biggest issue? Why do you think it's your biggest issue, right? Or what's your biggest, problem? What's your biggest frustration? And I do that with my team too, with my coaches. I'm asking them all the time, what do you think? What do you hear? What do you see? And that I just take that information and try to create the best solutions possible. And that's, without even realizing it over the years, that's helped me stay on the cutting edge. That's helped me see things maybe that some of the other competitors don't see, and not get complacent either. It's weird. It's like I've been doing it for 10 years, but it actually doesn't feel that long, because I feel like I'm always, it's like a new business every quarter, every year, because it's a constant quest to try to solve the client's problems, solve them even better every time.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I just reread, I think I'm on my 5th or 6th read of a book called Traffic Secrets by Russell Brunson, which I'm sure you probably read of.
I got it up there somewhere.
There you go. And one of his big focuses of success is you need to be a client-centric company, not a product-centric company. And honestly, Steven, when you're kind of talking about your obsession in a good way, obviously, and your fascination with like uncovering problems and really, diving into your clients' concerns and frustrations, I mean, that's really what the name of the game is all about. My next question, you might have alluded to this already, but would be, when you look back, obviously that's been a focus and reason for your success, but what would you say is your zone of genius? Specifically, if you take a step back and look, okay, wow, like what do I do exceptionally well, better than the next guy, that's really allowed me to achieve this level of success? And maybe it's one and the same, but I want to pick your brain there.
Yeah. Well, I think for me, it's, and again, it definitely has been, I think honed in over just trying to figure out how to solve our clients' problems better. But I would say for me, it's really a combination of, innovation, of creating a new idea or solving a problem, which is what innovation is, solving a problem, but then taking that solution, creating a strategy around it, and then communicating that strategy so it can be implemented. I think those are the things that I do the best. And it's just, so it's gathering information and then taking that information, creating a systematic or strategic approach around it, and then being able to communicate that in a way that's simple and easy to understand.
Yeah, interesting. I think, you're probably one of the best presenters I've ever seen. So when I hear that makes a lot of sense, because you are able to, take information, process it, and then really communicate it. And really, I would say we use the word step ladder approach in our working together, but really like a very clear step ladder formula, which makes it then easier to digest for your team, for your client, etc. So.
Yeah, my team always makes fun of me because I always try to everything's always using an acronym or it has some sort of systematic approach to it. But I'm I don't know why. That's just how my brain works.
So, Steven, you kind of shared some of your struggles in the very first year or so, and then obviously kind of giving the audience some insight on, some of the reasons, your fascinations, your zone of geniuses, and why you've been so successful. But, big picture, if you take a step back and a 30,000 foot view, what would you say was, the biggest challenge or two in your career as a fitness, gym owner?
I would say the thing that's, tripped me up the most, and I think it's, it's different for everyone, but me personally, and anyone listening to this, it's, is more of an idea person and, a big thinker and big action taker. I think you can probably relate to this if they really, sit back and analyze themselves. Is for me, I think what's tripped me up the most over time is not knowing myself enough, like my emotional intelligence. And thankfully for me, I feel like I have good character and good values. So even when I have screwed up when it comes to that, it hasn't caused, a ton of damage. Mm-hmm. But it's definitely set me back more times than not, just because, and I've really focused on that the last year or two. Which I know we're now doing that a lot more as a franchise, but really learning myself more in terms of my personality, how I make decisions, how I react to stress, and then how that affects my, how that affects other people. That has been something that over time it's kind of like, hey, if I knew what I know now about myself and people that work for me, that, things would be a lot different and go a lot smoother in the past. So I would say that's definitely overall, that's been the biggest overarching thing over the years that's, tripped me up that I've tried to learn from, is just not knowing, what some of the things that I did. I look back and I'm like, God, that was really stupid to do it like that, really, really stupid. And I'm like, God, all I had to do was just do it just a little bit different, and it would have went totally, different. So I think that's the biggest thing, just like self-awareness and knowing how I react and how that affects other people the most.
Yeah, well, I'm so glad you asked that, between self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and really just understanding human nature, because you brought to the table organization, kind of a training program called Take Flight Learning, which really has kind of swept our franchise by storm. We just are kind of in the initial phases of really adopting this and implementing it. In the time of the shooting is in early April. We presented that from your recommendation in early January, and we've ran a few workshops now, and it's just been actually game changing in terms of allowing our owners and coaches across the way to really have a good understanding of who they are from a human nature perspective and personality perspective. So can you share a little bit about your insights with that program, the biggest value that you've received? And it's just been incredible. So we'd love to hear more.
Yeah, I mean, so like you said, I've taken actually other personality tests before. So it's based around the DISC like profile, and I've taken those before and knew like what mine was and what other people's were, but for whatever reason, that company, they definitely have a different approach for like using birds instead of letters, which is just, every time I think about it, I'm like, it's genius, because you can remember it. But also not only that, their profiles, their insight into your personality and others is just so like spot on and so like accurate. And so for me, again, I'm a lifelong learner, so I want to like obsess and dive into like what mine is like, and try to max, because in a sense you're maximizing your own potential, right? Your own success, because it's based on the decisions you make and who you are. So just trying to learn more about myself, what my weaknesses are, what my strengths are, and again, some people know that more than others, but then you also might be surprised sometimes when you really can dive into the science about what you're actually strong at, where you struggle, because a lot of times we don't know, because those are the blind spots. And when you then see it, it's like, uncovering just all kind of stuff you never saw before, especially in other people, because then you see how, oh, that's why they're like that, or that's why they do that, or that's why they crap. Okay, all those things that I did, that's why it always went, a certain way. So, I mean, I don't know how much detail you want me to go into the actual like taking flight, but I mean, that's been a real game changer for me, just in that area specifically, for sure. So
yeah, and for me, and I want to acknowledge you, because you are the one that's kind of introduced that to our brand, our coaching program that we have, our mastermind group and onward. But not only understanding yourself, but the biggest takeaway I've received from it is working with others, how to communicate effectively to others, and just so powerful. So no, I just wanted to while you threw out self-awareness and emotional intelligence and really having a good understanding of communication, I just think it was super valuable. And we're actually, I booked Merrick, the CEO of Take Flight, to be on the podcast in a few months. So hats off to you.
He's awesome.
Good. All right. Well, I want to transition a little bit and talk about this Fit Body Forever thing, which you're the now national director for, and just excited to kind of showcase that. I just see there's such a big need. There's so many people there that really need what you and we're offering here. So can you cue in the audience a little bit about what Fit Body Forever is, what your role is, and how it all came to be?
Yeah, so the Fit Body Forever program, we actually, as a franchise, we launched it a few years ago, and we in our local location, we've actually done really well with it, and we have a pretty good area for it, meaning that our the average age and income is matches up pretty well for it, but there's a lot of areas that are really ideal for this, and the main thing is like especially now as we are into 2021. That we have an entire generation of boomers that have now hit 55, right? So it's like, I mean, you have just millions of people now. It's almost, I want to say, either this year or last year, there's more people over 50 than under 50 at this point, which is insane. So there's more people in this age demographic. They make up, they have 54% of the net worth in the United States. They have the most time. So if you think about it, they have the most time, they have the most, disposable income, and they have a very big need. And that need is and I've been working on this for the last year, really, putting on my investigator hat, and really, because I didn't want to go by my assumptions. Like, here's what I assume, here's what I think, but I want to really dig in. Like, let me interview. I've interviewed over 20 of our clients, one-on-one. I've done group, focus groups. I've reached out to several consultants. I've read half a dozen books already on just, my bookshelf now, it's funny. It's like what retirees want, boomers. I mean, I got all the younger next year. I got all these different books. So it really just boils down, because I try to sum it up like, hey, look, what's the, if you get to the gist of it, what's their biggest need? And they want to have the ability, right? Their ability is their biggest thing. And that's what you start to notice as you hit 55 plus, is like my ability to do more of what I want, what I need, what I love, right? So our thing is like, we want to give them back or keep them having the ability to do more of what they want when they want. And the whole thing too is to be ready to do it again the next day, because that's what we're seeing, like their recovery time, whether it's workouts or hobbies, like it all comes back to ability, right? Traveling, all the things they want to do. So it's a real need. And, I relate it to fishing, right? I'm a big bass fisherman. So, if you're fishing and, it's like fishing in a pond and there's 10 other fishermen in this pond. But if you look over your shoulder, the pond next to you, there's one person over there fishing. Well, your odds over there with one person is going to be a lot stronger. So it's the same thing with this market. There's just not very much competition, which is crazy because of the need and because of the opportunity in this market. So that's why we're really excited, because the need is there, and it's just a matter of tapping into that. And so we're really, one of the first to market, and we're really trying to build some systems for this group to make a huge difference for our franchisees.
Yeah. I want to kind of get some insights, and certainly I've worked with this clientele as well. And when I first started my fitness journey, I was in my early 20s. My thought was I was going to train, young 25-year-old guys. What I realized was that was not so fulfilling at all. Like, they're flaky. They don't know what they want. It's just, right. There was a lot of challenges with that. And also the level of ungratefulness, which is sky high. Yep. And certainly I was, my own demographic when I started training those clients. Can you talk a little bit about the fulfillment aspect? Not only is there a need, but actually what's the day-to-day like? What's the experience in working with this demographic? Because for me, that's the one thing I probably love the most.
Yeah, so I would say if we made a list, right? If we went down and we interviewed 100 fitness professionals who are either working directly with clients or who own a fitness business, if we listed out what their top 3 to 5 biggest frustrations are, it would probably be clients that don't pay on time, clients that don't show up or show up on time. So the flakiness, right? Either by paying or showing up. Yep. Clients that aren't focused, aren't committed. Clients that can't afford their services or say they can't afford their services, right? It's all those types of things. Well, these clients actually don't have any of those issues, really. They pay their bills every month on time. They show up. They're committed. They're consistent. And it's so crazy because we've been doing that for 5 years. And one of the biggest things I always point out is that in 5 years, we've literally never had a past due client for Fit Body Forever. Not one in 5 years. That right there is reason enough to want to train these clients. But it's none, 0 past dues. They pay more. They stay longer. The data that we have shows they stay on average, anywhere from 8 to 10 months longer than a client under 40, and they're committed because their reasons for wanting to get in shape are not external motivators, what people think about how they look or whatever. That's a little bit, everyone has a little bit of that, But theirs is, I want to be able to play with my grandkids. I want to be able to travel. I want to be around for all the things that now, all those opportunities that are now in front of me. So, that commitment is much, much stronger. And, I'll say the last thing, especially if you're a fitness business owner, you know this to be true. One of the biggest issues in our industry, right, is owning a fitness business and having a coach come in and develop relationships with your clients and then leave, and some of those clients leave with them. Now, I've been fortunate. I haven't had, too big of issues with that. But that being said, it's just kind of funny because it's like this group, unless you're just like a terrible operator of a business or as a person, like this, like that's not going to happen too much with this group of people, just inherently because like they're not best friends with your coaches. They're 60, they're 58, they're 65. Like they, so
Right.
so there's a different relationship dynamic there, which I think is a nice change of pace. It's refreshing for not only the coaches sometimes, but also the owners of fitness businesses, because the investment in helping the client is there, but there's not such a strong emotional investment that, the client, I mean, we've all seen it, right? The client's like just, they're basically depending on coaches in a way that is beyond what a coach should be.
Right.
And this client just, they're at a stage, a season in life where they don't need a coach to be their best friend. They don't need a coach to be emotionally dependent upon them. Right. And I know that there's a way that we can serve and help our clients that aren't in this group in that way that is certainly helpful for them. But I just find that that's something that's a nice change of pace for the entire business model and the coaches too. That's like, hey, this client just shows up and is super committed, and I can help them and I can see a real change in their life. But then they leave and go home, and then they're with their family. And like, it doesn't have to go like 10 steps further than that,
Right.
And that's something people don't think about.
So on that note, kind of, taking a big picture approach, and, we talked a little bit about like the journey for, for you to understand this type of clientele. And really the reason I asked the question, I just wanted to kind of give our audience like some good visual understanding on really the amount of time, energy, and effort you've really put in to really understand this clientele and really be successful with it. That in mind, say, someone's tuning in, they're listening, they're open, they're interested in, training this type of clientele. What would you say, from your learning experience, was maybe a pitfall or a trap or just something that you didn't expect, an obstacle in order to kind of be successful, in training this type of clientele?
I would say with this group, I don't know that we've made a ton of mistakes with this group, honestly, because I just really tried to do the research ahead of time. Again, I would say the biggest piece of advice I would give, though, is just to make sure that you recognize that their needs are different. Though their needs are different, their expectations are different, and so you need to be willing to adjust accordingly if you're gonna try to train clients that are 55 plus, because you cannot train them from an experience or obviously a programming standpoint as, a client that's, 25, 30 years old. They don't want the same experience. I mean, one example is like, for our boot camp clients, it's, the workouts are higher energy, and we talk about form, and we talk about, proper exercise mechanics, but we're also in there doing a lot of motivating, a lot of encouraging, creating a fun, exciting experience. Well, our Fit Body Forever clients, they want a fun experience, but they absolutely would rather you tell them what they're doing, why they're doing it, and if they're doing it correctly, more than you encouraging them and creating like this fun, energetic experience. So it's things like that, and the thing is like, I find that, for some coaches, that's not really in their wheelhouse. They would rather, provide a more exciting, energetic, type experience. But then on the other side, there's a lot of coaches that love a more like one-on-one or just one on a small group type experience, where they can really get on the client's level and really have more one-on-one interactions and coaching, experiences with the clients. And so it tends to work out really well for those types of coaches as well. And I think every team typically is going to have coaches like that, right? They're going to have coaches that will absolutely excel working more with a smaller group and working more with clients that are 55 plus because of those things. But I would say one more thing. It's a little more related to what we talked about earlier, is that, I think the biggest issue in our industry is that most people are focused on the fat loss demographic. And while that's still, what we want to, we basically want to have that customer in our business because it's such a big part of the market. I'll go back to fishing again, man. These other clients, they're swimming all around you. They're all around you. You just don't see them. And that's what absolutely would shock people, is if they knew how many of these clients were literally all around their business. And all they have to do is just basically start fishing, and they would start catching, because it's like there's no other, there's no one else fishing for these clients, and they're looking for a solution. Some of them know it and some of them don't know it, but either way, right? It's just like fishing. I can fish for a bass that's hungry, or I can fish for a bass and he'll bite out of a reaction. Okay. So it's the same thing in that, if you just, will kind of turn on your fish finder, so to speak, and look around. I'm throwing out all the fish analogies, man.
It's all good, man.
You can see what's not there, basically, right? Or what you don't like. It's kind of like that non-obvious thing that's like you only can see it through the right lens. So
right.
I think a lot of people would be very, very, very surprised of what opportunity is actually right in front of them.
Yeah, well, I'm so excited. I think there's so much opportunity here, and obviously you're leading the way, and you're really the expert, the authority in this, and that's really why I wanted to take a few minutes just to talk about the opportunity, kind of get some insights on the success that you've had, and really the opportunity that's really there. Now that said, kind of transitioning and kind of taking a 30,000 foot view, and you certainly, your experiences could be both regard Fit Body Bootcamp or Fit Body Forever, but when you look at it from the 30,000 foot view, you obviously won, and this is taking a little bit of back story here, but you won the 2016 Personal Trainer of the Year award. You obviously have really developed skill sets, etc. So what would you say would be a big value bomb or skill set or a tool or tactic that our audience probably should know, but they don't, and it's something that you've really utilized and implemented to be successful in either coaching platform, and probably led to your success at winning the Personal Trainer of the Year award?
Yeah, I would say number one, back to what we talked about earlier, never stop obsessing about your clients, because if you do that, your business will never suffer for very long, because you're always finding solutions to their problems. So that's always going to be my go-to as far as advice. But secondary, I would say one of the things that I've learned over time is that it's rarely, either or. It's usually both and. And what I mean by that is when we try to find solutions to our issues, whether it's leadership, leadership versus managing people. So, should I be a better leader or should I manage people more? Well, it's usually, both and, not either or, both, right? Yeah. Should I work more in my business or on my business? Well, it's probably, both and, not either or. Should I, focus more on getting new clients or keeping the clients I have? Well, it's probably both and, not either or. So I think that's kind of an all-encompassing piece of advice I would give people, that, different times, different seasons, you want to focus on one, or maybe a little more one or the other, but it's never either or, because you have to remember what type of business you're in, especially if you're talking about working, like, for example, in versus on your business. Well, if you're in a people business, like a fitness business, you need to work on your business if you're the owner, but you can never stop working in it because it's a people business. You're not like manufacturing like little widgets. You're dealing with people. So if you're not willing to work in it, someone better be working in it if you're not, because if you're not or someone else isn't, it's not going to be there for very long. You can't just work on, and vice versa, right? We know some people maybe work in their business too much, that they can't get up and look above, and see what's in front of them. They're always like got their head down and they're in the weeds. They can't see what's, coming and looking above the weeds. So I think that's always a good piece of advice to think about. It's just like, whenever you're, trying to decide, should I do this or should I do that? And it's really related to a very similar thing. It's usually both and not either or.
Bam, man, that literally blew my mind. It's so accurate. I'm thinking back, like, some of my experiences as an entrepreneur, and I think if I had that advice, or like had a little bit more awareness around that, I would have navigated some situations a little bit better. So thank you for that. Now, on the flip side, it's all not sunshines and rainbows, and you kind of talked a little bit about some of the challenges that you've experienced. Of course, also the highlights, the strategies, the tips, the tools, the tactics that's really made you successful. But level with the audience here. What would you say from either a life or a business perspective was, your worst moment, from an entrepreneurial perspective, or even life perspective, that, really at the time felt like the world was crashing down, but by going through that, you learned through it and you became better off for it, and really has aided in your success?
That's a tough one, because there's really like two, but I'll try to. I mean, obviously last year was really tough. But it's kind of weird though, because like as bad as last year was, and I'm sure it would have been a lot worse if I were in a different area. I mean, it's not like it was like, it didn't impact us. It definitely did. And it was a rough, especially the first part of last year was really tough. I would say it was also really strange, because even though that was like a, life-altering, business-altering year in a period of time, especially when everything kind of started in March, April. It was also very odd, because I got weirdly like just a tiny bit excited, it was weird. I was like, why am I like oddly excited right now? And it was because it was weird, because I was almost preparing for crisis and chaos for like the last 7, 8, 9 years without even knowing it, like learning all the principles of success and leadership, whether it's grit, perseverance, all these things. And they weren't really that applicable in the moment necessarily. But then when all of that went down, instead of like freaking out and going, this is it, like, oh my God, what am I going to do? It was literally like, wow, this is like, it's a crisis. I was like, my first crisis, like, this is awesome. It's my first crisis. And I'm like, why am I saying this to myself? But it was like, there's going to be, I'm going to reflect back on this, like literally I will tell stories like, to kids and grandkids, and like, we'll talk about it 20, 30, 40 years from now. So what do I want to tell people? Like, that's what I was thinking. And that, oddly enough, like just completely changed my outlook on the whole situation. Yeah, there was certainly a lot of sleepless nights and all that, but through all of those things, it was still like, hey, like this is just totally like just a test. It's totally just like, if I want to be successful, like, I mean, I don't know if we're doing video and just audio, but you can see behind me, like Nick Saban, Kobe Bryant. I mean, these people, like John Wooden, like every single person that you study that is successful goes through crisis and goes through like setbacks, and some of them just unbelievably, it was crazy too, because I started reading the book Obstacle is the Way last year, right before all that. So that was like an amazing book to read all of last year.
Ryan Holiday.
Yeah. And so it was like, that book was just, it was like my Bible last year, just reading that as I'm going through it and reading about every person that goes through crisis and how to reflect on it. And so the point is just like, as I was going through that, and as bad as it was, it was always like, hey, like I have to do it. Like, it's just like, I have to be willing. This is my opportunity to go through a crisis, go through a setback. Because if I don't, it's like, it's a prerequisite to success. It's just a prerequisite. So like, it's almost like when you go to school, when you're in school, like you have to take certain classes in order to get an advanced degree, right? Like you have to get a master's, to get a PhD. If you don't take those classes, you can't get those degrees. Well, in success, there's degrees of success. If you want to move up in your degrees of success, you have to take certain prerequisites. Those are called crisis. Those are called chaos. Those are called problems. Those are called, stressful situations. Those are called, tragedies. And if you're able to go through those prerequisites and pass those tests, then you get to have a higher degree of success. So that's really how I looked at it. and why I weirdly got excited about it.
Whew. All right, Mr. Hadley. So this has been awesome. A lot of knowledge here. And I know I don't have too much more time with you, but I want to transition to give our audience some big final nuggets of information about their life. In the lightning round, here we go. What is the number one thing today that you are most passionate about, and why?
Man, professionally, it's continuing to learn more about this Fit Buddy Forever market so that we can offer the best solution for them, for sure.
Awesome.
That's my mission right now.
Awesome. Next up, forget about all the success that you've achieved to date. Let's look back at the younger version of yourself. What would you say was the one thing that was holding you back in your way that you had to overcome? What was it, and how'd you do it?
Again, I would go back to self-awareness. I would go back to not realizing how, problems and situations affected me, my emotional state, how that in turn affected my how I made decisions, and then how those decisions affected other people.
Copy that. Next up, you're in the business of giving a good advice to your team, to your clients, to the owners that you consult with the Fit Body Forever program. What is the best piece of advice that you've ever received, and why?
For that one, I don't really know that it's necessarily received, but I will say that it's something that I read I've read a lot of different things that have stuck with me, but this one is really stuck with me when I read it a couple of years ago. It's out of the book Principles by Ray Dalio, and it's talking about, because we're always dealing with people, and this one's like in hiring and people on your team, but you could relate this to any relationship, honestly, and it's that people, unfortunately, people don't change a lot. And if they do change, they really, and I found this to be true, obviously, with myself, because I'm always trying to develop myself. And I know a lot of people listen to this. I know you are as well, Bryce. It's like people don't change very much. And if they do change, that change is only going to happen through a very committed and consistent effort, meaning like going to, whether it's, going to therapy or self-development, going through a course or courses or reading books. And you got to be very committed and very consistent with trying to make that change occur. And even if that change does occur, it's going to happen over a slow period of time. And so when it relates to like dealing with people and relationships, if people don't change very much, and if they do change, it's going to have to be very consistent and committed approach. Then you have to ask yourself, especially if it comes to like a hiring decision or keeping someone on the team or whatever, hiring someone, then are you willing to wait for that person to change? Do you feel like they're going to? Because if they're going to, it's going to be a consistent and committed approach. And if you do, are you willing to be patient enough for them to change? And usually that gives you your answer on whether they should stay, whether they should go, whether you should move them to another role. But the more I've really thought about that, after I read it, I've seen it to be true in myself and in others, So I think that's a really good piece of advice when dealing with people, is just that people don't tend to change much. And if they do, it's only going to happen through a very consistent and committed effort. And if they do, it's going to happen over a long period of time.
Copy that. Good insight. Next up, you, I would say, are one of my most expert friends within developing habits. I know you've read a lot of great knowledge. What would you say is the one habit that has exponentially increased and really affected the success that you've achieved to date?
Habits, man. There's a lot of them now. God, dude, that's a hard question because there's a bunch of them. What do you want to hear more like just as far as general like health stuff, or like more just success? Like give me some more specific guidance.
Not health and fitness. The reason I say that is most of our audience are people interested in starting a business. So from a productivity or from a business perspective, what would you say is the best habit or one of the best habits that you've acquired, and why? Okay, so let's go the productivity route. Without a doubt, one of the things I've been doing over the last I've always tried to do this, but I've really honed it in over the last 3 or 4 years, is when I'm planning my day. First of all, when I'm planning my week, it's like, what are the big three? What are the 3 things that I need to accomplish? And then each day, what are the big 3 things? So it's called
I've heard it called working above the line and below the line. So take a piece of paper, draw a line. Above the line, write 3 things that you absolutely have to get done no matter what. Below the line, write 3 things that you'd like to get done. And then work above the line the whole day until it's done. When you're done, then you can work below the line. And so that just helps you, because there's never enough hours in the day. There's always too many things to do. So just focusing on 3 and making yourself choose, that helps you prioritize your tasks better. And that also helps you end the day knowing that you got the top 3 things that had to be done.
Beautiful. All right. Next up, and I only got a couple for you left, but I can see your big bookshelf in the back. Leaders are readers, and you are certainly one of them. Out of that big bookshelf, there we go. What is your best book recommendation to Fitness Franchise Nation, and why?
Man, it's like one book. I'm just going to say this, because if it's fitness and if you're starting a fitness business, I don't think you can go wrong with, honestly, at the end of the day, anything by Dan Kennedy, I think, is a good start. So if you're really just, it's small business, local, like fitness business, if it's even if it's online, man, I just think anything, start there, because I think his books are just very good at helping you understand what it means to be an entrepreneur, to think like one, to act like one. And help you learn some hard lessons through his books before you have to learn them through going through some of the stuff yourself. So I would just say anything by him. Of course, specific topics I could give more, but I think just that's a good place to start, because there's just way too many, man. There's way too many. I could give you my top 25.
Dan Kennedy it is. All right, my friend, last question. You are you've imparted so much wisdom here. As we sign off, what would be the last final parting words of wisdom you would give our audience to better their lot in life, better themselves as people or business? Fire away.
I would say, we've touched on it a lot, but I would say that you just make sure you do the deep work that's required to learn more about yourself, what you're good at, what your strengths are. And focus so that you can focus more on those strengths, but then what are your struggles so that you can either shore those up so they don't have such a negative impact, but then find people that can complement them. But until you know what those things are, you keep spinning your wheels, right? You keep trying to do things maybe you're not so good at, and you keep, making the same mistakes over and over. So just learn more about yourself. And then that way you can start taking actions that will actually get the results that you're looking for. And then the last part of that would just be, never stop trying to learn, never stop being curious, keep asking why, keep asking how. And I think you'll always be successful with that.
Amen to that, Steven. Dude, that was awesome. This has been a great time. You've literally, helped so many people listening to this. So I want to thank you for that. I want to acknowledge you. You are an awesome dude. I've had the privilege of working together with you for almost 10 years. And I can tell you, man, it's been a privilege and honor. I've learned so much, from you over the years, and excited for what this next chapter will look like. So thank you so much for being on the show, and really appreciate you, buddy.
Thanks for having me, man.